And welcome back to the Cracking FAANG YouTube channel. Today we're going to be solving Leetcode problem 1091, shortest path in a binary matrix. Before we jump into this problem, I just want to ask you please to subscribe to my channel. I have a goal of hitting 1,000 subscribers by the end of May, and I need your help to get there. If you find value in these videos and they're helping you get jobs in FAANG, then please leave a like, comment on my videos, and most importantly, subscribe. That being said, let's get into this. Given an n by n binary matrix grid, return the length of the shortest clear path in the matrix. If there is no clear path, return -1. A clear path in a binary matrix is a path from the top left cell, i.e. 0, 0, to the bottom right cell, i.e. n-1, n-1, such that all of the visited cells of the path are 0, all of the adjacent cells of a path are 8 directionally connected, i.e. they are different and they share an edge or a corner. The length of a clear path is the number of visited cells on this path. So let's look at two examples here. So we have this grid 0, 1, 1, 0, and basically what's the length of the path? Well, we can see that we start here and we're allowed to actually traverse 8 directionally. So this is one of those problems where you can actually go 8 directionally. Sometimes you can only go 4 directionally, but in this case we can go diagonally. So our best path is simply to just go to the right and we'll end up where we need to go. And this is 2 total tiles, so that's why we return 2 here. So if we look at this other example with this little bit more complicated grid, essentially we start at the top, we go here and then here and then here, and that's going to be our shortest path. So it seems pretty simple when you look at the diagram, and it's easy to figure out what the shortest path is just by looking at it. But obviously we need to write an algorithm to solve this problem for us. So what do we want to do here? Well, anytime you hear shortest path, the thing that you typically want to think of immediately is going to be a breadth first search, because we can actually think of our matrix here as actually an undirected graph. And what that means is, each direction that we can go into is, like an edge we have from our current node. And using a breadth first search over an undirected graph will always give us the shortest path. So if a shortest path exists, because remember, we're not guaranteed to have it, we could be blocked, and we'll touch on some edge cases when we get to the code editor. If a shortest path exists, then using a breadth first search will give us whatever that shortest path is. So that's the approach that we want to take to solve this problem, and it's going to be a standard breadth first search that we do throughout a matrix. Right, it is a little bit weird to think about breadth first search when you're not using like a tree or a graph, but you can actually do it here and it's quite simple. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to the code editor. We're going to address some important edge cases, because there are a few in this problem that if you don't address them, you could potentially lose points to your interviewer, because it shows that you didn't think about the problem before getting started. So let's go to the code editor and we will write the code editor, and it's time to write the code for this problem. Remember that I said we need to address 2 edge cases before we begin, and this is going to show our interviewer that we're actually thinking about the input and we're not just jumping into our solution. So let's think about this. It is possible to not actually have a path, right? The problem tells us if there's no clear path, return -1. So that means that we could be blocked. And what's one thing that we want to check before we even start doing it? Well, if our starting point is a 1, then there's no way for us to start from there, because remember, a clear path needs to be all zeros. So if our starting point is blocked, then we know off the bat that we can't actually get to our ending point. Similarly, if our ending point is a 1, which means it's blocked, then there's no way to possibly get there from our starting point. Even if the entirety of the matrix is zeros, but that last target cell is a 1, then there's no way for us to get there. So we can check immediately whether or not we can solve this problem by just knowing whether or not the start and the end are even reachable. And it's not guaranteed that we'll be able to find a shortest path, but at least we don't have to go into our breadth first search to figure that out. So that's just like one bit of an edge case that we can check beforehand. So we can say if grid 0, 0, which remember is our starting point, or grid -1, -1, So essentially what this is checking is if grid 0, 0. So if it's a 1, then this statement will be true. Obviously, integers, non-zero integers will evaluate to true, and zeros will evaluate to false. So basically, if we have true here, then, you know, it's not possible to reach the start. And then same with the final position. If it's a 1, then we can't actually do it. So we can simply return -1. Oops, -1. Okay. Now what we need to do is we need to kick off the breadth first search. So to do a breadth first search, you typically use a queue. So let's set that up. So we're going to say collections.dec. And what we're going to put into the queue is going to be our current coordinates, x and y, and then also a variable to keep track of what our path length is, right? Since we count the start tile as part of our path, right? As we can see here, this path length, even though we've only jumped 1 tile, we count it as a total path length of 2. So that means that the starting tile, we need to count it as 1. So we're going to initialize our queue here as basically a tuple containing 0, 0, 1. So this is the x coordinate, the y coordinate, and then our current path length. And then we need to define all the possible directions that we can go in. So what we're going to say is we're going to say directions, and you know, be careful here to actually get all of the directions. So we're going to say 0, 1. We can go 0, -1. We could go 1, 0. We could go -1, 0. We could go 1, 1. 1, -1. -1, 1. And then -1, -1. Okay, let's just count these. Make sure we have 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, cool. Looks like we have all the directions written out. Now we actually just need to perform the breadth first search. So let's do that. So we'll say while we have queue, basically while we have something to process, we're going to say that the current x, the current y, and our path length is going to equal to whatever is in the left side of the queue. So we're going to pop from the queue. And we're basically now we're going to check, okay, are we at the end? Have we reached our, you know, target cell, which is the last position in the matrix? So we're going to say if x, if x comma y equals to, let's see, length of grid -1, and then this is going to be length of grid 0 -1. Essentially what this is doing, we're just checking whether or not our current x and y is equal to the x and y coordinate of the bottom right corner, which is what our target is. If we're at that point, then we can simply return whatever the path length is. Otherwise, we need to go 8 directionally. And when we go 8 directionally, remember that we can actually go outside of the bounds of our matrix. So we're going to have to check that the square that we're moving to is not only open, which means that, you know, it's a 0. There's no point of us going to a 1 tile because that would just waste space and waste, you know, iterations through our queue. We need to make sure that we're actually going to a 0 and that we're actually within the bounds of our matrix. Because obviously if we try to go outside of the bounds and then access the index, the values at that index, then we're going to have an index error and our function is going to blow up. So we're going to say for x increment, y increment in directions, what we want to do is we want to say that the new x is going to equal x plus the x increment, and the new y is going to equal to y plus the y increment. And now what we need to do is check whether or not we're moving to a valid tile. So let's check whether or not our new x is valid. So we're going to say we're going to make sure that the new x, if 0 less than or equal to new x less than lang grid. So basically we're checking whether or not the x is a valid position, and we're going to do the same thing for the y here. So new y less than lang grid of 0. And then we also need to make sure that we're actually moving to a 0. Remember that we can't move to a tile with a 1, so there's no point of even adding it to our queue. So we're going to say grid new x new y, and we're going to say and not new grid. So if grid new x new y is 0, then obviously that will evaluate to false, and then not that will be true. So we want to make sure that, you know, everything here is true, that we're in our bounds and that we're moving to a tile that is actually a 0. So at this point, what we can do is we want to make sure that we don't actually and I apologize for the sirens in the background. What we want to make sure now is that we don't go back on ourselves, because we'll just get caught in an infinite cycle. So what we want to do here is we're going to overwrite the position for the tile that we're moving to by setting it to a 1. And what this is going to do is basically it's going to ensure that, you know, we don't go back on ourselves. Now, this does assume that you can modify the original input. If your interviewer says, I don't want you modifying grid, then what you need to do is actually use a set, and you're going to keep track of the tuple pairs for each x and y coordinate, and then you're just going to be checking whether or not you visited that tile before. But in this problem, we're actually allowed to modify that input, so we're going to be doing that. And the last thing we need to do is say q.append new x, new y, and then distance plus 1, because obviously we've now gone an extra tile. And what we want to do is either we're going to find a path length here, so we're going to reach the bottom right corner, or we're not going to, which is the case where this while loop will break because we no longer have any valid paths to go down, in which case we can just return -1. And I just realized that we've made a slight bug here by, you know, similar to how we were overriding our x and y coordinates in the grid. We actually need to do this for the initial position, so that way we don't get caught in an infinite cycle, because we're always moving one forward. We're never doing it this is forward looking, right? Because we're currently at x and y, but we're setting it for the new x and the new y. We haven't technically moved there yet because it's not in the queue. So we would never actually set it for the initial position, which is why we need to do it here. So that is that. So let us just run this, make sure we haven't made any bugs, and name distance is not defined. Oh, I called it path length. Oops, my bad. Path length. Okay, that should now run. Okay, cool, it does. Apologies for that little mistake there, but no big deal. So what is the runtime complexity for this algorithm? Well, in the worst case, our matrix is essentially going to be all zeros, and you know, it's just going to be the path from, actually no, it won't be all zeros. I guess we can think of it as being like zeros only on the edges, right? So we would have to traverse all the way through the columns and then all the way down the rows to reach our final position. So this is going to be a big O of n algorithm, because the path length is going to depend on basically the size of our grid. So we can think of this as being big O of n. And then for the space, it's also going to be big O of n, because obviously we have a queue here, and the amount of items in our queue is going to depend on, you know, the size of our grid. So we can just think of it as being, you know, big O of n, or, you know, if you want to get really pedantic, it could be like rows times columns, or rows times columns. But I mean, this is just, you can think of it as just being big O of n. So yeah, that is the approach that you want to take to solve this problem. I think your interviewer is typically looking for the BFS algorithm to solve this. There is, I guess it's worth noting, I think an A-star algorithm which can also solve this problem in, you know, big O of n time, but to be honest, it's really complex. The chances of you pulling it out during the interview and not making any mistakes are quite low. So definitely stick with the BFS solution for this one. You know, don't risk it. If your interviewer then asks you, can you do it with A-star, then, you know, you better hope you know it. If not, I mean, most likely you probably won't have that. Most interviewers are going to be happy with the BFS solution, and I think asking for anything more is a bit harsh. So you should be fine with the BFS. Don't worry about it. If you understand the solution, this is more than enough for most companies and most interviews. So that being said, if you enjoyed this video, please leave a like, comment, subscribe. Let me know if there's any videos or topics that you want me to make videos on. I'll be happy to make those for you guys. Just let me know in the comment section below, and I'll do my best to get back to you. Otherwise, happy elite coding. Thanks for watching. Bye.